Hi everyone and welcome back to the World War II Solitaire board game channel. It's finally time to do another playthrough video. I've done too many unboxings lately, so there's gotta be a playthrough. This time we're gonna play the 8th Air Force 2nd edition. So this is a game that I covered on the channel before. I've done a full playthrough, but with the 1st edition. And I went pretty deep rule-wise in those videos because I thought they would be used by people all that mainly wanted to learn how to play the game. So in this one, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the rules, but mainly I am gonna play the game. So if you're interested in learning how to play the game, I would recommend you to actually watch my first 8th Air Force video, which again I speak more about the rules in depth. So since it's our second playthrough and it's the 2nd edition, I also felt like it would be fitting for me to also use the optional rules, because again, you have already seen me play this game, but you haven't seen me play it with the optional rules. So the 2nd edition comes with some more option rules than the 1st edition. And the first optional rule is going to be the Messerschmitt 163. That's Luftwaffe's experimental rocket fighter. And it's this little guy who will come in later in the game to aid the German Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. So that's the first optional rule that I'm going to use. And then I'm also going to use early Luftwaffe jets and United States Army Air Force jets. So if you look at the calendar, and I think you might not be able to see this because this is a big game, but in the calendar there will be a chance of German Luftwaffe jets in November 1944. But if you use the optional rules, they can actually already come by April 44. And then there is one more. Let's see, where's the second one? That's option B. That's the one we're using, by the way. No, actually, those are the two. Okay, so that's the first one, and that's the second one. And that's the one we're using. So they're going to be able to come in by April 44 instead of November 44. However, one good thing with this is that since it's an optional rules and it's kind of a what-if rule, or it is a what-if rule, there's also going to be a chance that we are getting US jet fighters. And in the beginning, they can only go to the interior of Germany, which is the second row. And then after the third one, no, sorry, the fourth one, they go into the deep, meaning they can go on escort missions throughout all of Germany. So we have P-59s, F-1-3, not sure if that is a British one, P-59 again, and P-80 jet fighter. I think all of the remaining ones, yeah, all of the remaining ones are P-80s. So you can see they have a 10 combat value for the group. The optional rule for early jets also brings in this one a little bit earlier. With this optional rule, it can enter combat in January 1945. So there's an increased, chance to seeing this guy more. And those are the optional rules that's available in the 8th Air Force, so that's the rules that we're going to use. So we got the game already set up. We're just waiting to put out our first German Luftwaffe forces and the AA. And I'm just going to say that this game does take quite a long time to play, especially if you're jabbering a lot like I tend to do. My previous videos, I split them actually up in 2 playthrough videos, and I think they were approximately 2 hours long. So I think that's a little bit too long because it does take a lot of time to edit the videos if you want to put some charts on the screen and so on to make the video more enjoyable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play 3 months at a time and, then cut the video and make a new one so that the videos don't get too long because, again, if they get long, they tend to get a little bit boring and also takes too long to edit for me. So that's how we're going to do it. So this game starts in January 1943. So we're right here, right now. And we're going to play January, February, and March. And generally, the first months of the wars tend to be rather quick. And as you progress throughout the game, the turns do become longer and longer. So we start with 2 groups of B-17 bombers and 1 group of B-24 bombers, and they all have 1 attached bomber squadron. So their combat value is 3, and squadrons to bombers are always combat value at 1. And then we have a fighter, and it's a P-38, and the group of fighter, the group is the main token, that's the one on the top, has a combat value 3 for the P-38, and the squadron token has a combat value of 2. So the combat value of fighter squadrons are always 2. It doesn't matter what group. Even if it's a jet group, a P-80, with a high combat value, the squadron is always 2. For me, when I learned this game, it was a little bit hard with the squadrons and the groups. But after you played a few turns, it's gonna, connect in your head. So don't worry about that. And again, if you want to have a deeper rules discussion, watch my first 8 Force videos. We have the Germans. They start with 3 FW-190s. I'm not going to say the full name. I did that mistake in the last video and my video got flagged. And then we have the BF-109. That's the Messerschmitt. And it's a school unit. So it doesn't have a high combat value. It only has a combat value of 2. And then we have the BF-110s. I think those are captured French planes or something. I'm not a plane guy, just so you guys know. Like in my first video I did with a air war game, I couldn't tell the difference between fighters and bombers, and people that were watching were so shocked. The amount of nasty comments I got. But I mean, I'm not into air warfare generally. It's a great game and I love it, and it made me more interested in air warfare, but I'm more of a tank guy. Anyway, so we have the BF-110s, and there's a total of 6 of those, and they have a combat value of 1, and then to the right of them is just extra Luftwaffe anti-aircraft token. So these also have squadrons attached to them typically, but the first units that you put out, they do not have any squadrons attached to them. So we're gonna place this out now, and I just want to tell you something. There is one specific rules when you place units out, and it's that you line them up strongest to weakest from left to right, and then you place them out from left to right. There is just one specific rule now that is only for the setup, and that is when you roll to place them, if there ever, it's going to go 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, etc. If there ever is a box where there is already a unit, you go to the next box and put them out. Or rather, you put it in the lowest number track without any fighter in it. So if there is already one on 2 and it goes on 2, it will instead go on 1 if 1 is empty. Okay, so we go ahead and roll a green and a red die, which comes with the game, and we roll 5-1. We look at the Luftwaffe new group placement table, and we can see if we look at the green die, 5, and then we look at the red one, 1, it says 5/1. So it's going to be track number 5. And the reason why there is a 1 and a slash is because throughout the game the Germans will retreat. So they will leave these tracks, and they will finally retreat like this, meaning that 5 is not going to be used. And if that happens, then you will use the number to the right, which is 1, and this one would instead go over here. But we're not there yet. We're going to get there, hopefully. So he starts over here. And we just go ahead and roll again, and this time we roll 6-5. 6-5, we can see it's going to be track number 8. That's unlucky because we're going to this track in this turn to bomb some submarine bases. And we roll again, and this time we roll 2-4. So that's going to be track number 2. And then we roll 1-3, that's going to be track number 1. So ever roll 1 on the green, you can see it's always going to be track number 1. And then we roll 3-2, so that's going to be track number 3. No, 3-2, that should be track number 2. Okay, so then it will go to track number 3. Since track number 2 has an FW, it goes to the lowest number unoccupied box. So that's number 3. And then we have 3-6, and that is again track number 3. So it instead goes to track number 4. But it was actually 6-3. And 6-3 is going to be track number 7. My apologies. I'm trying to play quickly so that the video doesn't drag out too much for you. And then we roll 2-5, which is track number 2, which is occupied, so it goes to track number 4. And then we roll 3-4, which is track number 3, which is occupied, so it goes to track number 6. And now you just place out the next two. Anyway, it rolls. So 2-2 is track number 1. And 5-5 is track number 6. One thing, a little tip here, an advice, is that when you place these guys out, learn to place them strongest to weakest, because that will speed up the game once you get into combat situations. And these guys should actually be in the coastal area, not in the boxes themselves, because in these boxes that's where you're gonna go ahead and place out your missions. And then we have the AA tracker, and that represents the Germans mobilizing AA to, you know, important objectives, so they're mobilizing them for whatever reason. It's all in your mind anyway. 5-2, which is going to be track number 5. So that's over here. So the Germans think this is the place where we're going to send our next bombing campaigns. And that is it for our start. You know, we don't do anything with our guys over here. And over here, again, you cannot see it, but we have a turn tracker, which is now in January 1943. It goes to it goes to April 1945. And then we have the turn phases. And there's a total of 9 turn phases. And in the very first turn, you will always start on number 4, which is RAF attacks and mission construction. I always like to use this because, again, it's a big game. It's not a very complicated game, but it's a big game. It takes a long time, and I like to take some breaks every now and then. And, you know, sometimes the combat and the mission construction can take some time if you're, you know, thinking a lot. And if that happens, this one is very nice to have to make sure you don't get lost. Okay, so we start with probably one of my favorite parts of the game, which is RAF attacks. So roll a die. I like to use the green one because I think the red one is German and evil, so I choose the green one. And with the green one now, we look at the RAF attacks table, and we can see that if we roll a 5 or a 6, it says 1. And 1 means a war industry target bombed, and those are the black areas, and those areas are really important to bomb. And with the RAF attacks, we can also choose war industry targets which are very hard for us to reach. Like generally Berlin is going to be a really tough nut to crack. So, you know, it has a high AA value, it has an AA value of 8, and usually there's a lot of German forces that would concentrate in these 3 core areas. So Berlin is perfect to attack if you get some aid by the RAF, because if we do bomb a place with them, we actually get to choose where. So now it's 1943. We can see we need to roll a 5 or a 6. That's what we're going to need to roll every year. However, in 44 and 45, we might also get to place one of these tokens on already bombed war industry, which makes it harder for the Germans to repair it. And in 45, we have 2 of those tokens. You can see here that they're marked with 44 to 45 and 45 only. So again, in 45, we get 2 of them, which is very nice. All right then, so it's time to roll, and let's hope for a 5 or a 6. We roll a 1. Perhaps I should have rolled the red one instead, but I made my decision, and I am going to stick with it. Okay, and then we have the mission construction, and what happens now is, this is truly the favorite part of, for me in the game, and this is now where we're gonna contemplate wherever to send our forces and so on. So now, before we get going with that, I am quickly gonna talk about how do we win the game, how do we lose the game. So we can see that the VP here starts at 0. All we need to win, absolutely all we need, is to get 1 positive victory point. If we get 1 victory point, we win. The problem with that is that it's extremely difficult to get victory points for us, because the only thing that you know, the only way we can get victory points is by this black target, which is the war industry. There's 9 of them. There's Berlin, Pilsen, Schweinfurt, Hamburg, Hanover, Bremen, Osnabrück, and Wiesbaden, and Düsseldorf. And for each of them that we bomb, we get 1 VP. However, there is a problem here. For each of them that we do not bomb, the Germans get 1 VP. If no target is bombed in Berlin, they also get 1 VP. For every damaged or destroyed group, they get 4 VP every turn those damaged forces stay in those areas. One thing to note, we can also get 1 bonus VP if we bomb all the targets in Berlin. So if we bomb the oil facility and the aircraft factory and the war industry, we get 1 additional VP. So the highest VP we can ever get, that's 9 VP for having all the war industry bombed, and 1 bonus VP for having every target in Berlin bombed. But as you can see, I have 3 group of bombers. So in this turn, I can, if I was really lucky, I could bomb 3 industry targets. But the Germans would still have 6 targets that are unbombed, and that means, you know, I would get 3 VP, the Germans would get 6 VP, so in the end, it's a 6 VP positive for the Germans. And that's actually what you track here. So this one would go over here, meaning the Germans have 6 VP. So here we actually don't track our VP, we track the Germans' VP. And it could go all the way to 130, and if it does, we lose, or actually 140. And if it does, we do lose. So that's the most common way of losing. But you can also lose with these bombing campaigns. So if you thought that we were just gonna bomb nice stuff, the red ones are oil facilities, by the way, and they hamper the Germans, the Germans' ability to manufacture bombers, refit. So damage forces go here, and for each unbombed red target oil facility, they can repair 1 squadron or 1 group. And the green ones are aircraft factories, there's 6 of them as well, and for each one of those, the Germans can manufacture 1 squadron or 1 group every turn. So, you know, we're gonna wanna bomb those 2. And then, again, we have the bombing campaigns, and that is the second way that we can lose. You know, again, you thought we would get to bomb the nice juicy targets. Oh no, because higher command has other ideas. We have to bomb submarine bases, we have to support the D-Day landings, we have to support Operation Cobra, we have to support river crossings, railroads, V1 factories, we have to help out the Soviets in several places, Brandenburg, what else is there? They're kind of hard to spot on the map, to be honest. Dresden, and I know there's one more, yeah, Rostock. So there is so many things that we have to bomb, even though it doesn't give us any VP, but it keeps us from losing. So you can see the track right here. Right now we have 2 bombing campaigns active, which is the submarine bases in Saint-Nazaire and Brest, both of them in track 8. For every bomb target that we bombed, we get to move it 1 to the left, but for every one that is unbombed, we move it 2 to the right. And, you know, if it ever ends up on the far right end of the track, we are sacked and we have lost the game. So those are the main ways that we can lose, but we can also lose if we run out of time by April 1945. If we haven't won, we also lose. And on the track here, there's actually red numbers starting from March 1944. There's a number which is 130. And it goes, you know, it decreases by 10 every turn, 120, 111, 110, 190, 80, and so forth, all the way to 0. And what that means is if you get to that date and hit that number, it is mathematically impossible to win. So by March 1944, if the Germans have 130 points, it will be an automatic loss and the game is over. Alright, so finally enough babbling for me. We're gonna go ahead and execute our mission. So we can see we have the bombing campaigns, Saint-Nazaire and Brest, which are the submarine bases. And we can see that we have 4 spaces, so we could actually survive without bombing those 2 locations in this game. And I think that is what I'm gonna do. I think I am gonna go ahead and perhaps attack Bremen and Osnabrück. So what I like to do is calculate the maximum amount of casualties that I could possibly take in such a mission. So for example, if I were to attack Bremen, Bremen has an AA value 3, which we can see here. The track or the location has an AA value of 4, so that's 7. And then we have to add the AA values of the fighters. So 7, 9, 10. So it has a total value of 10. And I don't want to lose groups. Squadrons are fine to lose, but if I lose groups, I'm in big trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look how many squadrons I have, and I have 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and consult my combat results table. So the Germans in this location have a total combat value of 10. And if we look at the combat value of 10 here, we can see, or air combat factor, we can see that if I roll the red die, I can lose, on a roll of 1, I can lose 1 squadron or group. On a roll of 3, I could lose 2 of them. And on a roll of 6, I could lose 3 of them. So that is the maximum amount. I could also push to attack, for example, I could try to go with Osnabrück. That would be 3, 7, 13 combat value because the FW has 6. I could go to Hamburg, which would be 5, 8, 9. So I think perhaps I should go to Hamburg instead. That's one lower. And there I could only lose 2. And I'm looking at if I should split them up, if it would be possible, but no, because then it's going to be a potentially I can lose 5 squadrons. So I'm going to play it safe, and I'm sending them in. And actually one thing here that is kind of fun is that I can't actually send all of them. And the reason why I can't do that is because I can never mix bomber types. So B-17s cannot go on missions with B-24s. And that's only the bombers. It's not something that's going to happen to our fighters. We can send any mix of fighters. We do not need to send any fighters, however, so we can send this B-24 out. For example, that's something I would probably do here right now if these guys change places. But since the FW, Big Bad Wolf, is in track number 8, I'm going to play it safe, and B-24, the crew of that plane is going to get to have some R and R. So I'm going to go ahead and attack Hamburg, and that ends this mission construction. One thing to note before we go ahead is that the fighters have a range limit, the bombers don't. The P-38 has something here that you can see, and it says int in green text. That means again he can go to the interior, which is the second row. Some fighters can only go to the coastal area, some can go to the interior, and some can go deep, meaning they can go, you know, wherever the bombers can go. Alright, so we go ahead and we move to the next step, which is 5, execute missions, and this is also where we're going to get the chance to do a fighter sweep, but we're going to talk about the fighter sweep once the mission is over. So the first thing that happens is that you have to roll to see if the German fighters actually intercept. That is something that they actually don't always do. So we roll on the Luftwaffe group scramble, and we look here and we see that the target is in the interior, and we can see on a roll of 1, none of them will scramble. On a roll of 2 or 3, half of them will scramble, and on a roll of 4, 5, 6, all of them will scramble. So let's say that just, you know, if none scramble, of course none will attack. If all of them will attack. But what happens if half will scramble? Let's just go ahead and give you a visual example of that. What you do is you put your German units in a row, always strongest to weakest. And if you roll half, you take the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. So that's how that works. If it's half. So it's rather simple. But now, even because there is 1, so even if I roll half, that one is going to go ahead and attack. Okay, so we go ahead and roll, and hope for a roll of 1, and we roll 3, which means half will attack. But again, if there's just 1, it's still going to be all. So he attacks, and what happens first is he fights it out with my fighter. And they will attack simultaneously. But I like to go with the Luftwaffe first because I want to see, I'm excited to see if I made it or if I had terrible losses. So we go back to the combat results table. We look here, and the Germans have only an air combat factor of 1. So we roll on the 1 table, so we can see we will only get a loss now on a roll of 5 or 6 with the red die. And roll of 4, so that means 0. So the Germans did not manage to shoot down any P-38s. Our P-38 has a combat value of 3, and the squadrons, as always, combat value of 2. That gives us a total combat value of 5. We look at the table, and we see there is 4, there is 7. You always go down, so you never go to 7. If it's a 5 or 6, you instead go to 4. We can see that we need to roll a 4, 5, or 6 with the red die. And we roll a 1, so that's rather unfortunate. That means they only shoot at each other, but they don't hit each other. So the P-38 goes back here into the background. And then we send our bombers. So now it's the bombers, not only versus the fighter, but also versus the target and the AA itself. So what you do is you just add all of the values. So you add the 1 from the fighter, and then you add the 5 from the area AA. We are now up at 6. And then you add the AA of the target, which is 3. So we now have a total combat value of 9. So we look at the table again, and we see there is a 7 and a 10. So we go down to 7, and we roll the red and green die. And the the red die, that's a pretty good roll. It's just 1. However, the 6 is not good. We don't want a high number with the green one, because that, now that we have the 2, which means we have 1 damaged or destroyed bomber, we go to the damage destroyed table. And now we look at the table, and we have 1, so we use the first column. And with a 6, we can see the amount which will be damaged and the amount which will be destroyed. And we have a black 0, meaning that there will be no damaged groups or squadrons, but we have a red 1, meaning that 1 group or squadron will be destroyed. So we take one of the squadrons of the B-17, we can choose either one, and that is put in the dead pile. So that cannot be repaired, however it can later be manufactured. And that ends the battle of the Germans, but I get to fire back. So let's look at my combat value. My 2 groups of B-17s has a combat value 3. So it has a combat value of 6. And the groupings always have a combat value of 1. So with the squadrons. So we have 6, and then we have 2 squadrons. So it's 7, 8. And the reason why we add 2 squadrons is because remember that combat is simultaneously. So even though the one we lost, we have to keep that in mind. So 6 plus 2, that's 8. So we have a combat value of 8. We look at the combat results table, and we use the 7. And we roll 5, 3. Not a bad roll. So the 5 is going to be 2, but there's only 1 left. So we go down, but we still use the 2 column. So that's good to remember. Don't use the 1 column even because there's 1 target. Because we have 2 targets that are destroyed or damaged. That's the one we use. And then we look at the 2, and we roll the 3 with the green one, which means 1 target damaged and 1 target destroyed. And since there is none to be damaged, but there is 1 to be destroyed, we destroy this guy, and he ends up in the dead pile. And that concludes actually the combat. And what we do now, because Hamburg has successfully been bombed, is always successfully bombed if at least 1 bomber survives. And we draw 1 of this. We don't look in the cup. You can see it perhaps, but I can't. And it's a 1, and that's gonna have later on the Germans are gonna get to try to repair some of their bombed places, and that's when it's gonna come in play. So our bombers go back to base. And one thing to note here is that if you are bombing a heavy target, you always have the option, if you brought fighters, if you manage to bomb the target, to conduct a fighter sweep. A fighter sweep means the fighters will have combat again. And remember, when it's fighter versus fighter, you never use any AA values. So it's very beneficial for you to use your fighters. And they will have combat again. The only thing that will differ is that you will total their value, and then you will half it, rounding down. So this one with a combat value 5 would become 2.5, and you round it down to 2. So they would have a combat against these guys, which have a combat value of 1, which turns into 0.5, which turns into 0. So these guys would be combat value 2, 0. That would be very beneficial, but it's not always beneficial if there is large groups of Luftwaffe forces and you don't have many fighters. You might not want to do it, but that's something that you can do only once every turn. So when you see that opportunity to clean up some of the Luftwaffe forces, it can be really good. Sometimes you can have several missions, like, for example, we could have the B-17s hitting Hamburg, and then we could have the B-24s hitting Braunschweig. And that would be a perfect opportunity to do a fighter sweep to make sure that the B-24 has an easier time getting to their target. Okay, I noticed that I did speak a lot about the rules, even though I promised not to. But I promise you, it's gonna flow. It's gonna flow better when we get to the second turn, or at least the third turn, because in the second turn we do have phase 1, 2, and 3, which we haven't seen before. Okay, we have executed the mission. Now we go to phase 6, which is Scorp campaign and victory points. So we only have one active campaign, and that is the submarine bases. And there is 2 targets, and both of them are unbombed. So the bombing campaign marker moves 1, 2 to the right, meaning next turn we're gonna have to bomb one of them, or we're gonna get sacked, and this is gonna be a very short playthrough campaign video. Okay, and that's it. Then we have the victory points. So the Germans have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 targets. 1 is not bombed, and Berlin doesn't have a bomb at all. So basically the Germans, they get 8 victory points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, for 8 unbombed targets. And then they get an additional victory point because Berlin is not bombed. You can see here, Luftwaffe gets 1 VP if no Berlin targets are bombed, and the USAF gets 1 VP if all Berlin targets are bombed. So they get 9 VP minus 1 because we have managed to bomb Hamburg. So we move the victory points marker to 8. And there we go. That's that step. We go to the next phase, which is Germany retreat or Jets. So Germany retreat doesn't come into play until August 1944, and the Jets do not come into play until April 44. And remember, generally it would be November, but because we're using the optional rules for early Jets, they will come in to the game April 44. We go to phase 8 of 9, which is Luftwaffe refit and then manufacture. And this is really the most horrible step of this game, because especially early in the game, you're going to see the Luftwaffe, they're building up their forces so quickly, and you are doing it so slowly. So it's a horrible step, but it's part of the game, and you're just going to have to be a man and man up and accept it. So you always start with the refit, and refit, you take damaged forces, the amount of unbombed oil facilities. So right now we have 6 of those unbombed. That means 6 groups or squadrons will be repaired. However, this one is empty now, so no units will be repaired. And then you move on to manufacturing, and you will manufacture as many groups and squadrons as you have unbombed aircraft factories. We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all of them unbombed, meaning the Germans will manufacture 6 aircrafts. So you always start with dead groups. And we have a BF 110. So we start with that one, and then we take from their dead pile, I have a little cup here with squadrons, and they are only fighter squadrons for the Germans, always with a air combat factor of 2. And we're going to take 5 of them, since again we have, pardon me, since we have to manufacture 6, and we manufactured 1 dead group. Okay, so for the group, you will normally roll on the Luftwaffe new group placement table, but if there is an empty track, you will always put it on the empty track. And then we have the squadrons, and the squadrons will go to the priority Luftwaffe group, and the priority Luftwaffe group is the one with the least amount of squadrons attached to them. Right now, all of them are unattached. If there is a tie like that, it goes to the one with the highest air combat factor, which is the FWs, and we have 3 of those. We have a tie again, and when that happens, it goes to the one in the lowest numbered track. So for the first one, it's gonna be the FW in track 2. Second one, the FW in track 5. Third one, the FW in track number 8. And the fourth one, it's gonna go to the BF 109 school unit. And then the last one is going to go to the 110 in track number 1. And that's it. We go now to the German bombing repair. I hate this one, although not equally as much as the manufacturing refit. We roll 2d6. Every number we get here, there's going to be a repair. Currently we only have a 1 damage, so if we roll a 1, that will be repaired. If you roll 2 numbers on this, you're incredibly lucky. It happens every now and then, and you will cheer. And roll a 5 and a 6, and there's no bomb targets with 5 or 6. So, you know, we're quite lucky. You can see here, here's a 6, there's a 3, and so on. I've had some late game turns, and the Germans repaired 8 bomb targets in one repair. And that's when you will scream profanities instead of cheering. And that, my friends, is the end of turn number 1. We move the phase tracker up. And then we go now to February 1943. Remember, I'm going to do 3 months in every video. So we have February and March remaining. Again, next turn is hopefully going to be a lot quicker. Phase number 1, which we have never done before, is Luftwaffe moves, AA, reinforce core areas, and new groups. We start by rolling on the Luftwaffe new group placement table. Roll 5-5, which means track number 6. So the AA goes to track number 6. And then we have reinforced core areas. So we have 3 core areas, that is 1, 2, and 3. They are marked red. If at any time during the game a non-core area, that's 4 to 8, has more than 2 groups more than any of the core areas, you move the strongest unit to the weakest core area. So, for example, let's say that we would have this situation right now. Number 6 would be moved into track number 2, because that's the weakest one. The weakest one means the one with the least amount of groups. And if it's a tie, because both of them have 1 group, if it's a tie, that means that the lowest number one will get that. And it will only happen once in every turn. It cannot happen twice, only maximum of once. This turn, however, we do not have that situation. Alright, so that leads us to the new groups. For the new groups, we consult the calendar, and we can see here that the Germans are going to get 2 520 school. So we find them here off to the side. And new groups always comes with squadrons. If you ever run out of squadrons in the dead pile, you will instead take squadrons in the damage forces area, if there are any there. So when you look at the calendar, you can see that in some months, for example, in over here in it's going to be in April, that's when some groups are going to go away, and this can happen to both us and the Luftwaffe. And you can see that BF 109 school is in that, I don't know what that sign is called, but you know, it's in this thing, and that means they go away. So anyway, when you get new groups, you roll as usual on the Luftwaffe new group and place table. We'll roll 5-2, and that means it goes to track number 5. And then roll on 2-3, and that means track number 2. And that's it. We go now to step number 2, which is United States Air Force new groups and refit and manufacture. So we look at the calendar to see if we get any new groups, and we do. We get P-47. Let's see, P-47, that's a decent fighter. Can go to the interior, has a combat value of 5. Also comes with an attached squadron. Remember, the squadron for fighters is combat value of 2. We do not get any bombers, however. That's a little bit unfortunate. We do, however, get manufacture and refit, just like the Germans do in the end of every turn. And you can see the number on the calendar. So you can see that in the beginning of the game, we're going to manufacture 1 squadron of fighters and 2 squadrons of bombers. And that increases throughout the game until finally in 44 we can produce 2 fighter squadrons and 4 bomber squadrons. In 45 we can produce 5 of any. However, it is going to increase already in 43 by, I believe that's April. We can produce 3 bombers instead of 2. So, you know, it is slowly increasing, and that's, you know, one charm of the game, that you will get stronger and stronger, and you will start to wear the Germans down. that is the end of the manufacture step. We go to phase 3, which is add or remove bombing campaigns. And we look here at the calendar, we can see there is no new campaign in March, which is next month. We can see that the railroads campaign start, and we can also see when they end. So we can see that, let's see here, the submarine, they will end in December 43. So we have a long way to go. So no added campaigns this time. So now we go to step 4, which is RAF attack, and now we have seen a full turn. Because remember, in turn number 1, we don't start with step number 1 or phase 1, we start with phase 4. So now we're back at the RAF attack and mission construction. So what we do now is we go ahead and roll a die. Again, I like to use the green one. And we go ahead and really hope for a 5 or 6. And roll a 2. So it's better than a 1. I gotta give them that, but it's not enough. So we do our mission construction, and this time, oh yeah, sorry, I should have manufactured 2 bombers too, squadrons, and that's fighters. Almost forgot. And I'm gonna go ahead and attach them to this guy. Let's see if I want to give one maybe to the B-24 as well. The combat value here is 8, 9, 10. So I can lose 3. So I'm going to go ahead and attach one of them to the B-24 and the other one to the B-17. And that is the end of the manufacturing. So we are again at the mission construction. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send first a squadron of B-17s to bomb Saint-Nazaire. And they are going to get both of these fighters because I really need to take down that FW. And then I send a squadron of B-24s to Brest. I'm not sure if it's the best way to go, because the problem is that in Saint-Nazaire the combat value is 3 in the area, 1 for the target, that's 4. That's 10, 12 totally with the FW. And with 12, that means I can lose 3 squadrons if I'm really unlucky, and I only have 2 squadrons attached to the B-17. However, I do have pretty good fighter value. It's 14. So with 14, I could potentially, do some damage if they scramble. I can be really unlucky and they don't scramble, and then the B-24 bombing Brest is going to be in trouble. However, I think that is the way I'm gonna go, and because sometimes you have to take a chance, you cannot play it 100% safe all the time, because if you do, you will lose in the end. However, please take note that I don't need to bomb 2 targets. I could potentially just bomb, for example, Brest, and I still wouldn't lose on the track. However, next turn we get the railroads, and when the railroads gets going, there's 6 of them. So I'm not going to get a new bomber next turn either. Next turn I'm getting a P-47. So I don't want to be, one step away from losing the submarine bases. They might even repair them, because then I'm going to be in big trouble. So this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a chance. You can choose whatever order that you want. You don't have to go deep first or coastal first. The reason why I choose to go deep first is because if I go coastal, there is a chance that they are not going to scramble the FW. And then when the B-24 comes for Saint-Nazaire, he's going to be in even bigger trouble. So we go ahead and attack Saint-Nazaire. We move on to phase 5, which is execute mission. And we roll on the scramble table, and this time we do hope to roll at least a 2 to make them scramble. That was really close. That means half of them will scramble, and remember, if there's just one of them, that means they will scramble. So first we have fighter versus fighter combat, and the Luftwaffe has a combat factor of 8, and we roll for the Germans first, and we go to the 7. It's gonna be a 6. I was a 4. Okay, that's all right. On a 4, that means 1 is damaged or destroyed, and that means on a 3, 1 is damaged. So 1 squadron, I go with the P-38, goes to the damaged forces staging area. And then I get to roll for my combat, and my combat factor is 12, so we use the 10 column. I really want to roll a 3 or higher with the red one. And a roll of 4, that's really perfect, because on a roll of 4, that means 2 forces are damaged or destroyed. And on a roll of 4, it means 1 is damaged, 1 is destroyed. So you always destroy squadrons first and damage them first before you destroy or damage any groups. So this one now is destroyed, it goes to the dead pile, and this is damaged, and it goes over here into the damaged forces staging area. So my fighters did a really good job, and they returned to base since there's no more targets to do that second sweep. So that's really perfect, fighter sweep. So Saint Nazaire remains, and we don't have to calculate their combat value now for the fighters, so we only do the 1 for the target and the 3 for the area. So that's a combat value 4. So if we don't roll a 4 or higher with the red, we're good. We roll a 2, which means nothing. That's really great. So Saint Nazaire is successfully bombed. And we put a 2 on it. Sometimes, you know, what can happen is that you can have a lot of targets bombed with the same number. Let's say that would be a 1. You could have several 1s, and that's sometimes it's good because then it's hard for the Germans to repair it. But if they repair it, they repair all of those. So that's really horrible when that happens. And then we have the B-24s, which are going to Brest, and Brest has a combat value of 1, the area combat value of 1. So we use the lowest column now, 1, and if we roll a 4 or lower, we are undamaged. Look at that. Okay, that was pretty cool actually. The bombing campaigns were a total success. Our fighters did receive some damage to the squadrons, but just 1 token. So I'm very happy about that. And we draw a bomb token for West, and this time we took a 6. So we have 1, 2, and 6 now. So there is quite a big chance the Germans are going to get to repair at least 1 target in their turn. So we go to phase 6, score campaign and victory points. Campaign, we have 1, 2 bomb targets, no unbombed targets. So that's good. And then again, we have the victory points, and it's going to be exactly the same. The Germans get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 victory points. Plus 1, because Berlin is unbombed. That's 9 victory points. Minus 1 for the bomb target. That's 8 victory points. So they go from 8 to 16. So you can see in the beginning of the game, the Germans are, it's really scary. It's almost a little bit overempowering because they build up so much, build up so slowly, and they get so many VPs and you get so little. You know, 1 versus 9. And that's it for phase 6. We go to Germany retreat and jets, but we're not, it's not going to be, you know, relevant before April 44. So we just skip it. And then we have Luftwaffe refit and manufacture. So refit, they only have 1 damaged one, and it's the FW. As usual, it goes into any empty track. And then we have their manufacture, and this time it's going to be 6 squadrons since there's no groups to repair. So the first one goes to the FW. And second one goes to this one. Third one goes to this one. And then any of these 2. And finally this chap over here. So now all of them have an attached squadron. So the Germans are getting stronger, definitely. Okay, and that is it for their manufacture. Now we go to German bombing repair. We don't want to roll a 1, a 2, or a 6 now. A 5 and a 6, I gotta say. 1 repaired out of 3. I'm still okay with that. So this one, you remove it. The Germans have repaired the submarine base of Brest, which, I mean, makes sense because they do like their submarines. And that, my friends, is the end of February 43, turn 2 of 3. We go now to March. Okay, so we are in March and we move their AA. They roll 5, 6, which is going to be track number 6, which is already in. I'm fine with them staying there, to be honest. And then we have reinforced core areas, but there's not 2 more than any of the core areas. And new groups. So the Germans will not, let's see, they will get 190 and a 520 school. There we go. And remember, they do come with their squadrons. And roll. Roll 3-2. And that's going to be track number 2. And roll 5-5, and that's going to be track number 6. So they are concentrating a lot of their forces into track number 6. And we're going to have one of the railways there, so that's not perfect for us, but it is what it is. And then we go to United States Air Force new groups, and this turn we get another P-47. Not really what we need. I would like some bombers. Don't really feel like I need more. Okay, I can take more fighters too, but I mainly want new bombers. And then refit manufacture. Refit. We can refit. We can refit now and manufacture 1 fighter, 2 bombers. So refit 1, 2, and then manufacture 1, 2. But there's only 1 fighter squadron here. There's no bomber squadron, so that's the one we grab, and we attach that to one of the P-47s. And then we have the manufacturer, which is going to be 2 bombers and 1 fighter squadron. So the fighter squadron we will attach to the other P-47. And the bomber squadrons, see here, I like to see, before I attach them, I like to kind of get a general idea of where I want to go and bomb. And I think I'm going to be bombing in these tracks. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 targets of the railways. That's where we're going to be heading next turn, or this turn. And let's see, this one is kind of bad because there's a lot of forces and the reinforced AA. So, the combat the value here is 5 for those two, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And here it's 5, 7, 10, 16. So it's 16 in both of those. And if we look at the combat results table, we can see with 16 we can lose a total of 5 squadrons. And so I'm going to have to actually put them on just 1. And that gives him 4 squadrons, so I could still potentially lose a group. And I don't like that. But in the beginning, that's how it is going to be. You're just going to hope that your fighters do their job. It's the same with the fighters. They only have 4 squadrons, so even they could potentially lose a group. And for me, when I lose groups, it usually happens in the beginning of the game when your forces are quite weak and there's not really much you can do about it. And that's going to be it. So we go to add remove bombing campaigns. So this we can see on the calendar. We have to add railroads. So it goes on the start. And then we take the tokens for the campaign. And we can start in track number 2, which is going to be B-field. And then we go to track number 3, which is Cologne. And track number 3, which is Frankfurt. Track number 5, which is Aachen and Stuttgart. And finally, track number 6 is Amiens. Okay. So I'm not quite sure here what to do. 7. Okay, I think I have a plan. Okay, we go to RAF attacks and mission construction. And we roll the green die, hope for a 5 or a 6. Ah, look at that. RAF does what they need to do. So we go ahead and take a bombed one, and we get to choose the city now. And of course, oh, another one, that's dangerous. Of course, we want to bomb Berlin, because if we have at least 1 target bombed in Berlin, the Germans don't get that bonus VP of 1 if there are no unbombed targets. And take note, you can only bomb the black war industries. You cannot bomb aircraft factories or oil facilities. And then we have the mission construction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and send my B-17s to Aachen. And so then when you have another group, like, this group has 4 attached squadrons. And that's because, I can take a total of 5 casualties if I'm unlucky. And that's why this guy doesn't have any squadrons attached. However, sending this one alone to a mission, that would be really stupid, because that would mean that he would most likely die. However, leaving him in the base is also, a waste, because if I send him with that guy, the bonus that I get is that I do get to add his combat factor if the fighters make it through an attack. So there's, and I could, potentially not lose him, because again, the total loss I could get now is 5. And there is 4 squadrons and then 5 with the group. So I cannot lose 6, so there's no danger in sending him. He can't be lost, even if it's a catastrophic result. However, he will add his combat factor. So the best way to do now is just to send him. And this is not a guide in play this way to win. This is just the way I think. So, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling your... It's really fun, when you play a game and figure these things out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another gamble and send all of my fighters. And hope again that they intercept and that I can do a fighter sweep if I'm successful in the initial fighter combat. Because that's going to make it a little bit easier... That's going to make it a little bit easier for the B-24s that go to Aachen. Hopefully, they will be unopposed by any fighters. Or at least, a damaged fighter group. Okay, I think that is the way we're going to roll. We go to turn phase 5, which is execute mission. Or missions. Okay, I'm a little bit nervous now, to be honest, because this could potentially be catastrophical. It's a deep area, I see, which also means that I cannot send these guys to Stuttgart. So that's a problem as well. You can see they can go to the interior. So I'm thinking Stuttgart has a combat value of... Okay, that's what I do. So I'll send these guys to Aachen, and then I go with the B-24s to Stuttgart, which has a combat value of 7 combined. So if all fighters are taken care of, they should be fine. They have 2 attached squadrons, but I don't think I'm going to take 4 of them out. My combat value isn't that high, actually. It's 13, 15, 17. So I could potentially take out 5. There's 4 of them, but that's with a really lucky roll. And I don't think that's going to happen. But again, you have to gamble a little bit. High Command wants us to bomb those damn railroads, so let's go ahead and bomb those damn railroads. Okay, let's start with Aachen now, and we roll on the Luftwaffe Group Scramble for interior. We really want to roll a 2 or a 3 or higher. We don't want to roll a 1 where none of them intercept, because then the B-24s are going to be blasted out of the sky. Let's go ahead and roll. Roll 6. That means all of them scramble. We have the FW and the DE 520. And again, always the initial combat is between the fighters versus fighters. So the Germans' combat value is 6, 7, 9, 11. So we use the 10 column. And that's actually a really good roll. 2 are damaged or destroyed. And with a green roll of 6, that means 2 are destroyed. So 2 of my squadrons go to the dead pile. Oh, I dropped them in the wrong one. And now I get to fire back. I have a combat value 13, 15, 7. I get a count. 10, 13, 15, 17, plus 4. 19, 21. 21 with the lost squadrons. So that's actually pretty good. Let's go ahead and roll on the 19 column. Ha! Oh no. Okay, so 1 is damaged or destroyed. And we roll a 5, that means 1 is destroyed. So we take a squadron from the weakest group, which is this one, and it's destroyed. And my fighters hang tight, because I can still do the second fighter sweep. And I will contemplate whatever I should do that. So Aachen has a combat value of 1. It's 7 with the area, 8 with this guy, 14 with this guy, and 16 with the squadron. So let's roll for the Germans first. They have 16. Oh! No. 16, that's 4 damaged or destroyed. And with a 6, that's 1 destroyed, 3 damaged. We didn't lose any groups. That is the important factor here. But we did lose, you know, all of the squadrons, everyone. So we're going to be in trouble for the next turn. Let's see here. What did we say? 16, that's 4 damaged or destroyed on a roll of 5. And with a roll of 6, that's 1 destroyed, 3 damaged. So 1 is damaged. Sorry, that's one damaged, 3 destroyed. And 3 are destroyed. Ah, that's really crappy. Okay, I do get to fire back with my bombers. They have a combat value of 6. Plus the 4 damaged 1. So that's going to be 10. So combat value of 10. So I will definitely take down at least 1. I hope to roll 3 or higher so I can get at least 2 away. I always roll low. So 3, that means 2 of them. And then on a 1, that means 2 are damaged. Okay, so these 2 are damaged. So the FW, the one that I wanted to get away, he's the one that survived. That's crazy. Okay, so these guys do manage to... Oh, I used the wrong combat. I should have used that one. They would have had 2 less in combat value. Well, that's too late. That's my mistake. I gotta pay for it. I can't even remember their combat. Was it 19? Okay, let's just bring 1 squadron back, I guess, because I think their combat value was 19. I'll pay for it. I don't know if it changed something, because sometimes, you know, again, it's 19 to 22 to 25. So, for example, if the combat value was 2 less, it doesn't necessarily mean you would go to the left column. So it is my mistake, and I gotta pay for it. Anyway, Stuttgart... Oh no, yeah, Stuttgart was bombed. That's the first whoops of this video. Hopefully there is not many more. And then we have a chance, because that is successfully bombed, we can do a second fighter sweep, and that is what I'm going to do. So we start with the Germans, and they have a combat value of 6. You know, multiply by 0.5, so the combat value is now 3. And even with a 3, they roll high. That is 1 damaged or destroyed, and a roll of 5, that means 1 destroyed. So 1 of my fighters' squadrons are destroyed. My combat value is 7, 14, 17 times 0.5. Ooh, I don't like math. That's 8.5, I believe. And 8.5 we have to roll on the 7 column. 5, 1. I mean, at least it's 2. But on a 1, that means, you know, 1 damage. So he goes into the damaged. So at least we got rid of them for the B-24s, but at a very high cost of my B-17 and fighter squadrons. Okay, so then we go ahead and do Stuttgart. Stuttgart has a combat value of 7 plus 1, so that's, sorry, 6 plus 1, so that's 7. And go for a low number, at least. Oh, look at that, that's beautiful. That means none of them are damaged or destroyed. So the B-24s do a pretty good job. Stuttgart goes over here, and we grab a damaged one and put over here. And that is the end of the missions. So we go to score campaign and victory points. For our submarine bases, we have 1 bombed, 1 unbombed. So it goes back. For the raid roads, we have 2 bombs. So it goes 1, 2. And then we have a total, I believe, of 4 unbombed. Yes, we do. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's now on 2. So I'm safe for the next turn at least. And then we have German retreat, which is not something that's going to happen right now. And then we have Luftwaffe refit and manufacture. So refit, we start with their highest valued groups, and then we go to their squadrons. All of the oil facilities are unbombed, so there's going to be a total of 6, but there's only 3 available. So we place them out as we always do. And we roll 6 free, so that is going to be track number 7. And then we go ahead and attach the squadron to this FW. And then we have manufacture, there are no groups, so we go ahead and grab 6 squadrons for the 6 unbombed aircraft factories. And we start with this guy. And then it goes to this guy. And then it goes to this guy. So now they're getting really strong. You know, almost all of them have 2 attached squadrons now. And then finally it goes to this guy. And that's that. And now we have the German bomber pair. We have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we don't want to roll 1, 2, 3. We don't want to roll 4, 5, or 6. Ah, look at that. Ah, that's really lucky. That is really lucky. I'm mostly excited about not having Berlin repaired. And that's something we should have done during the score campaigns and victory points. I got a little bit ahead of myself, but let's do that now. So the Germans have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 VP. And then -1, that's 6, -1, that's 5. So they only get 5 VP. That's a big improvement. So they go from 16 to 21 VP. And that, my friend, is the end of March 1943. Next turn, it's going to be April 1943. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you will come watch the next one. I think this game is a really fun game to play, and it's really fun. I like that it's actually quite long, that it takes a long time, because most games that I have, you know, you can finish them in like 30 to 60 minutes. But this one, you know, you can have it on the table for a weekend, and, you know, it can take 3 to 4 hours, and, you know, you can play, you know, an hour every now and then go do something else. Like now it's, you know, it's 5:05 in the evening. I gotta go walk the dogs. So it's a perfect, you know, you play a turn and go take a break. I really like that. I appreciate it. And then as I'm doing that, now I know that when I'm gonna go walking my dogs, I'm gonna be contemplating, like, okay, how should I consolidate my next squadrons? Like, which targets should I go for? Should I start hitting some of these heavy industries before the Germans get the upper hand in those? Because they do, you know, they do keep in these core areas. So it's a really fun way to play. And I really hope that you enjoy watching it. And I do hope that you keep coming back to these videos. There's, you know, potentially there's going to be 4 episodes for every year. So it could potentially be a total of 10 episodes. But if I have victory, you know, sometimes I've won in July or June 44, then it's just going to be 5 or 6 videos. So, but I mean, I think this is a good way to do it. Let me know what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching. You can buy this game from Fortress Games website, and it's also available on Amazon, I think, in some countries. Anyway, I'll give you a link in the video description on where you can get this game. You know, if you like the video, please do comment. It means a lot to me. Like the video, share it, and also subscribe if you're not subscribed so you don't miss out on the following episodes. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.